You carry something in your veins that science calls DNA, but the ancients knew by a different name. They called it the thread of eternity. Not because it connects you to your parents or grandparents, but because it binds you to a lineage that precedes flesh, predates civilization, and reaches back to the moment consciousness first decided to take form. Your bloodline is not just biological. It is cosmological. And encoded within it lies a power so vast that most never tap into even a fraction of what courses through them every second of every day. Think about this. Every ancestor you've ever had, every single one, survived long enough to pass life forward. Wars, plagues, famines, betrayals, heartbreaks. They endured. They adapted. They continued. And because of that unbroken chain of survival, you exist. That's not luck. That's encoded resilience. That's inherited will. But the chain doesn't stop at human history. Trace it further back, past the first humans, past the primates, past the earliest organisms crawling from primordial waters. Go all the way back to the first spark of awareness in the universe, and you'll find the same thread. Your bloodline doesn't begin with your family tree. It begins with the cosmos itself. Modern science confirms what mystery schools have whispered for millennia. Mitochondrial DNA, passed down through the maternal line, can be traced back hundreds of thousands of years. Some researchers suggest that all humans share a common mitochondrial ancestor, often called mitochondrial Eve. But here's what they rarely say. If you trace the elements in your body, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, you'll find they were forged in the cores of dying stars billions of years ago. You are not merely descended from stardust. You are stardust that learned to remember itself. Your bloodline is stellar, ancient, and unbroken since the dawn of creation. Yet most people walk through life disconnected from this inheritance. They feel small, insignificant, ordinary. They look at their family history and see only struggle, dysfunction, or mediocrity. They believe the circumstances of their upbringing define the ceiling of their potential. But bloodline power doesn't care about socioeconomic status. It doesn't care whether your parents were educated or wise. It flows regardless, waiting beneath the surface like an underground river. The question is not whether you have access to it. The question is whether you know how to dig deep enough to drink from it. Your ancestors are not gone. They live in you. Not metaphorically. Literally. Epigenetics has revealed that trauma, triumph, and survival strategies are passed down through generations. If your grandmother survived a famine, your body may carry metabolic adaptations from that experience. If your grandfather endured war, the neurological imprint of hypervigilance may echo in your nervous system. This is not a burden. It is information. It is evolutionary intelligence stored in your cells. And when you learn to access it consciously, you stop being a victim of inherited patterns and start becoming the architect of inherited power. But the real secret lies deeper still. Your bloodline is not just a record of what happened. It is a repository of what was learned. Every ancestor who faced fear and moved through it left a mark. Everyone who loved fiercely, created boldly, or stood in defiance of injustice imprinted that frequency into the line. You think you're starting from scratch, but you're not. You're standing on the shoulders of countless souls who survived the unsurvivable. And their strength, their wisdom, their fire, it's all still here. Dormant maybe, but not lost. Most spiritual teachings tell you to transcend the body, to escape the physical, to rise above matter. But that's only half the story. You don't need to escape your bloodline. You need to activate it. Because the body is not a cage. It is a temple built by 1 billion years of cosmic evolution. And inside that temple, there are rooms you've never opened. Chambers of power you've never entered. Frequencies you've never learned to tune into. The universe didn't just create you. It became you. And when you realize that your bloodline is the vehicle through which infinity chose to experience itself, everything changes. So when you feel weak, remember this. You are the latest expression of an unbroken chain of survival that stretches back to the birth of stars. When you feel afraid, remember that your ancestors faced worse and still pressed forward. When you feel alone, remember that you are never alone. You carry multitudes, and those multitudes are not silent. They speak through your intuition. They guide through your instincts. They strengthen you when logic says you should break. This is not mysticism. This is biology meeting divinity. And the moment you stop seeing your bloodline as a burden and start seeing it as a transmission, you unlock the power that was always meant to be yours. The power in your bloodline doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or validation. It sits in silence, buried beneath layers of conditioning, survival patterns, and cultural programming. Most people go their entire lives never feeling it because they've been taught to look for power in all the wrong places. They search for it in status, in wealth, in the approval of others. But bloodline power doesn't live in the external world. It lives in the marrow, in the nervous system, in the quiet spaces between heartbeats where memory and instinct converge. Consider a tree. Above ground, you see branches, leaves, the visible structure reaching toward the sky. But beneath the soil lies a vast root system, sometimes twice the size of what's visible. That root system draws nutrients, water, and stability from deep within the earth. Your bloodline power functions the same way. What you see, your conscious thoughts, your daily actions, your personality, is only the canopy. The roots, the ancestral intelligence, the encoded survival mechanisms, remain hidden. And if you never dig down to touch those roots, you'll always feel disconnected from your true source. The reason most can't feel this power is because they live entirely in the thinking mind. The mind that plans, analyzes, and constantly narrates. That mind is useful, but it's also the thinnest layer of who you are. Bloodline power doesn't speak the language of thought. It speaks through sensation, through gut feelings, through the sudden knowing that arises without explanation. Have you ever had a moment where your body tensed before your mind registered danger? That's ancestral intelligence. Your nervous system recognized a pattern your ancestors survived, and it responded faster than conscious thought ever could. But modern life has severed most people from this intelligence. We're told to ignore our instincts, to rationalize everything, to live in our heads. We sit in chairs for hours, stare at screens, breathe shallowly, and wonder why we feel numb. The body, the vessel that carries bloodline memory, has become a stranger. And when you're disconnected from the body, you're disconnected from the power. It's like owning a high-performance engine but never turning the key. The potential is there. The fuel is there. But without activation, it remains dormant. There's another reason the power stays hidden. Fear not fear of weakness, but fear of strength. Deep down, some part of you knows that if you fully access this inheritance, your life would have to change. You couldn't stay small. You couldn't keep playing safe. You couldn't hide behind excuses or victim narratives. Bloodline power demands accountability. It asks you to rise to the level of those who came before you. And for many, that feels like too much. So they unconsciously suppress it, dulling themselves with distraction, comfort, and the endless loop of low-level living. Trauma also blocks access. When an ancestor experiences profound suffering, sometimes the only way to survive is to shut down, to numb, to disconnect from feeling entirely. That shutdown can be passed down. You may carry a dimmer switch in your nervous system that was installed 2 or 3 generations ago as a protection mechanism. It kept your grandmother alive during wartime, but now it keeps you from feeling fully alive during peacetime. The body doesn't know the war is over. It's still bracing, still guarding, still operating as if survival is the only goal. And survival mode, while useful in crisis, is the enemy of thriving. Another block comes from inherited shame. Perhaps an ancestor made choices they regretted. Perhaps they carried guilt for what they survived when others didn't. Perhaps they internalized messages of unworthiness from oppressive systems, religions, or cultures. That shame doesn't dissolve with death. It gets woven into the line, whispering to descendants that they don't deserve greatness, that they should stay quiet, that they shouldn't take up space. And so generation after generation lives beneath the ceiling they never consciously chose. They feel the weight but can't name the source. They carry a heaviness that isn't entirely theirs but shapes them nonetheless. Yet here's the truth they don't want you to understand. The same line that carries trauma also carries transcendence. The same DNA that holds pain also holds the blueprint for healing. Your ancestors didn't just pass down wounds. They passed down the medicine. Every time one of them loved fiercely despite loss, every time they created beauty in the midst of chaos, every time they chose hope over despair, that frequency was encoded. It's in you, right now, waiting to be remembered. To access bloodline power, you must first become aware that it exists. You must stop thinking of yourself as an isolated individual and start recognizing yourself as a continuation. You are not separate from your lineage. You are its current expression. And just as a river draws from every tributary upstream, you draw from every soul upstream in your line. The question is whether you'll drink consciously or remain parched, standing ankle-deep in a river you never knew was there. Activation doesn't start with doing. It starts with remembering. Not the kind of remembering where you recall facts or stories, but the kind where your body recognizes something it knew before words existed. This is cellular memory. And when you learn to access it, you stop living as a single lifetime and start living as the culmination of countless lifetimes converging in this moment. The first step is to stop dismissing your instincts. When your gut tightens in a certain situation, that's not random. When you feel inexplicably drawn to a place, a practice, or a person, that's not coincidence. When you have a dream that feels older than your own experience, that's not imagination. These are the whispers of the bloodline. Your ancestors speaking through the only language available to them now. Sensation. Intuition. Knowing without knowing why. Begin by honoring the body as sacred ground. Not in some abstract spiritual sense, but practically. The body is the archive. Treat it accordingly. When you move, you're not just exercising. You're stirring memory. When you breathe deeply, you're not just oxygenating cells. You're awakening dormant codes. Ancient practices understood this. Yoga, qigong, martial arts, dance, these weren't just physical disciplines. They were technologies for accessing ancestral power. Every posture, every breath pattern, every deliberate movement was designed to unlock what the body already knows. There's a reason indigenous cultures honor their elders and ancestors with ritual. They understand that the line is alive. That those who came before are not separate, but present. Many traditions include practices of ancestral reverence, not out of superstition, but out of recognition that the living and the dead are part of one unbroken continuum. When you honor your ancestors, you strengthen the connection. When you speak their names, tell their stories, acknowledge their sacrifices, you activate the transmission. The power begins to flow more freely because you've opened the channel. But this doesn't mean blindly worshiping the past. Some ancestors made terrible choices. Some caused harm. Some were complicit in systems of oppression. Honoring the bloodline doesn't mean excusing dysfunction. It means acknowledging the full truth. The light and the shadow. The heroism and the cowardice. The love and the betrayal. All of it shaped the line. And all of it can teach you. Even the darkest parts of your lineage carry lessons. Perhaps they show you what not to become. Perhaps they reveal the cost of unconsciousness. Perhaps they illuminate the importance of breaking cycles. This is where you become the turning point. You are not obligated to continue every pattern passed down to you. You have the power to say, "This stops with me." That declaration is not a rejection of your bloodline. It is the highest expression of it. Because someone in the line had to be strong enough, conscious enough, and courageous enough to break what no longer serves. Why not you? Why not now? The power in your bloodline isn't just the strength to survive. It's the strength to evolve, to transform, to become the ancestor your descendants will thank. Practical activation also involves reclaiming your name. Names are not arbitrary. They carry frequency. In many traditions, knowing someone's true name was believed to grant power over them. Why? Because names are vibrational signatures. They connect you to lineage, to history, to identity. When you speak your full name aloud, you're invoking everyone who carried that name before you. You're calling on their strength. Some people feel disconnected from their given name. That's okay. You can reclaim it. You can redefine what it means. Or you can choose a name that resonates with the frequency you wish to embody. Either way, the act of naming yourself consciously is an act of power. Another key to activation is facing the unspoken. Every family has secrets, stories that were buried, truths that were too painful to speak, shame that was hidden. But secrets don't disappear. They fester. They create blockages in the line. When you bring them into the light, not to judge but to witness, you release stagnant energy. You don't need to excavate every detail. Sometimes all it takes is acknowledgement. Something happened here. Something was survived. And I honor that. That simple recognition can dissolve barriers that have existed for generations. Meditation becomes a bridge. Not the kind where you empty the mind, but the kind where you invite presence. Sit in stillness and ask, what strength did my ancestors carry that I need now? Then listen, not with your ears, but with your entire being. Images may come. Sensations may arise. Words may appear in your mind. Don't dismiss them as imagination. Imagination is how the invisible communicates. The boundary between memory and imagination is thinner than you think. And when ancestral wisdom comes through, it often feels like both. Finally, live in a way that would make your ancestors proud. Not the surface-level pride of achievement, but the deep pride of integrity, of courage, of refusing to shrink. Your bloodline didn't survive plagues, wars, and impossible odds just so you could live small. They endured so that one day, someone in the line would finally be free enough, strong enough, and aware enough to rise fully. That someone is you. And the moment you step into that truth, the activation is no longer a concept. It becomes your lived reality. Once the activation begins, a deeper transformation unfolds. This is where blood and spirit merge, where biology becomes sacred technology, where the physical vessel stops being a limitation and starts being the instrument through which universe-level power expresses itself. You are not spirit trapped in matter. You are matter awakened to its own divinity. And your bloodline is the alchemical formula that makes this possible. Alchemy was never about turning lead into gold. That was allegory. The real work was about transforming base consciousness into enlightened awareness. The body was the laboratory. The blood was the prima materia, the raw substance. And the process required fire. Not literal flames, but the fire of experience, of suffering transmuted into wisdom, of pain refined into power. Your bloodline has already undergone this process across generations. Each ancestor who faced crisis and didn't break added to the refinement. You are not starting the alchemical work. You are completing it. Consider how a diamond forms. Carbon subjected to immense pressure and heat over millions of years. Without the pressure, it remains coal. But with it, it becomes something unbreakable, brilliant, and valuable. Your bloodline has been under pressure for generations. Poverty, war, loss, betrayal. Systems designed to crush. And yet the line didn't break. It crystallized. The struggles weren't punishments. They were the forge. And now you carry the result, diamond-level consciousness encoded in flesh. This is why your challenges are not arbitrary. They're calibrated. Life doesn't give you random obstacles. It gives you precisely the resistance needed to activate the strength already in your bloodline. When you face a situation that feels impossibly hard, your ancestors faced worse. And they left you the blueprint for how to navigate it. Not consciously, but cellularly. Your body knows what to do. Your instincts know where to move. The wisdom isn't in your head. It's in your blood. And when you stop overthinking and start trusting the deeper intelligence within you, solutions arise that logic could never calculate. The alchemy also happens through integration. Shadow and light. Masculine and feminine. Action and stillness. Your bloodline carries both polarities. If you descend from warriors, you carry courage, but also the trauma of violence. If you descend from healers, you carry compassion, but also the burden of absorbing others' pain. The key is not to choose one side and reject the other. The key is to integrate, to hold both, to become whole. This is the alchemical marriage, the union of opposites within yourself. And when that union occurs, you stop being fragmented and start being complete. Blood itself is alchemical. It carries oxygen, nutrients, immune cells. But it also carries frequency. In many ancient cultures, blood was seen as the carrier of life force, of spirit made tangible. Sacrifices, rituals, covenants, they all involved blood because blood was understood to be the bridge between worlds. You don't need to engage in ritual bloodletting to access this. You only need to recognize that your blood is alive with intelligence. It remembers. It responds. And when you treat your body with reverence, when you nourish it, move it, honor it, the blood becomes a more efficient conductor of the power it already carries. There's also an energetic component. Kundalini traditions speak of a coiled energy at the base of the spine, waiting to rise. When activated, it moves through energy centers, purifying, awakening, and ultimately uniting the individual consciousness with universal consciousness. This isn't separate from bloodline power. It's the same force, described in different language. The energy rising through your spine is the same energy that has moved through every ancestor's spine. You're not accessing something foreign. You're accessing something ancient that's been yours all along. The alchemy accelerates when you consciously work with it. This means choosing practices that activate rather than numb. Fasting, for instance, isn't just about physical detox. It's about creating space for deeper awareness to emerge. When the body isn't constantly digesting, energy becomes available for other processes. Old patterns surface. Clarity sharpens. The bloodline speaks more clearly. Similarly, breath work, especially intense practices like holotropic breathing or wimhofmethod, forces the nervous system to recalibrate. It shakes loose stagnant energy and opens channels that have been closed. Sound is another alchemical tool. Your voice carries frequency. When you chant, sing, or even speak with intention, you're not just making noise. You're vibrating matter. Your bones, your blood, your cells, they all respond to sound. Ancient mantras weren't just prayers. They were frequency codes designed to activate specific states of consciousness. You don't need to learn Sanskrit. You can use your own voice. Speak your intentions aloud. Declare who you are becoming. Let your voice be the tuning fork that brings your entire system into coherence. The final element of alchemy is gratitude. Not the shallow kind where you list things you're thankful for, but the deep kind where you feel the miracle of existence itself. You are the result of a cosmic lottery so unlikely it borders on impossible. And yet here you are, breathing aware, capable. That gratitude, when felt fully, transforms everything. It shifts you from lack to abundance, from victim to creator, from forgetting to remembering. And when you live in that frequency, the alchemical process completes itself. You become gold. Not in the sense of perfection, but in the sense of being fully who you were always meant to be. Once you've activated the power, once the alchemy is underway, the final step is embodiment. This is where knowledge becomes experience, where potential becomes reality, where the power in your bloodline stops being a concept and starts being the foundation of how you move through life. You no longer seek power because you recognize you are power. You no longer chase purpose because you understand you are the purpose. Your bloodline didn't survive for millennia just so you could exist. It survived so that through you, the universe could express something it couldn't express any other way. Embodiment means you stop waiting for permission. Your ancestors didn't wait. They couldn't afford to. They moved when movement was needed. They spoke when silence would have meant death. They created when destruction surrounded them. That same urgency, that same refusal to hesitate, lives in you. When you feel called to act, act. When you sense a door opening, walk through it. The power in your bloodline isn't passive. It's dynamic. And it requires you to be in motion, not just in contemplation. Living as embodiment also means you stop apologizing for taking up space. For too long, systems of control have conditioned people to shrink, to defer, to believe they're not enough. But your bloodline didn't survive the impossible just so you could play small. Every ancestor who fought for survival, who endured hardship, who refused to quit, they did it so that one day someone in the line would finally be free enough to live fully. That someone is you. And when you step into your full presence, when you own your power without arrogance but with quiet certainty, you honor every soul who made your existence possible. You also become a bridge. Not just for yourself, but for those who come after. The healing you do, the cycles you break, the consciousness you embody, it doesn't stop with you. It ripples forward. Your children, whether biological or spiritual, will inherit a cleaner line because of the work you did. The next generation won't have to carry the same weight because you chose to transmute it. This is the ultimate purpose of accessing bloodline power. Not personal gain, but generational transformation. You are the turning point, the one who said, enough. This changes now. Living as embodiment requires you to stay grounded. Power without grounding becomes chaos. You don't need to float off into spiritual bypassing or inflate your ego with grandiosity. The most powerful people are often the quietest. They don't need to announce their strength because it radiates naturally. They walk into rooms and the atmosphere shifts. Not because they demand attention, but because their presence carries weight. That weight is not arrogance. It's coherence. It's the alignment of body, mind, and spirit. It's the integration of bloodline power into every cell. You'll also face resistance. Not everyone will understand. Some will feel threatened by your rise. Others will project their own limitations onto you. That's not your concern. Your job is not to convince anyone. Your job is to live your truth so fully that it becomes undeniable. And when you do, you'll find that the right people, the ones who resonate with the frequency you're carrying, will be drawn to you effortlessly. You won't have to chase connection. It will find you. Finally, embodiment means you live with legacy in mind. Not legacy in the superficial sense of fame or recognition, but legacy in the truest sense. What will those who come after you inherit from your life? Will they inherit fear or courage? Will they inherit scarcity or abundance? Will they inherit shame or dignity? Every choice you make is a vote. Every action is a seed. And the garden you're planting now will be harvested by those you'll never meet. That's the power and responsibility of knowing your bloodline carries universe-level intelligence. You're not just living for yourself. You're living for the line itself. So rise. Not because you have to prove anything, but because you owe it to every ancestor who bled for your existence. Not because the world demands it, but because your soul requires it. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were never meant to stay silent. You were never meant to live small. The universe collapsed stars, forged elements, and orchestrated billions of years of evolution just so you could be here, in this body, with this awareness, at this exact moment. And now that you know the power you carry, the only question left is this. What will you do with it? Your bloodline has been waiting. The ancestors are watching. And the future is holding space for the version of you who finally remembers. The activation is not coming. It's already here. It's been here all along. And the moment you stop searching for it outside yourself and recognize it's already flowing through your veins, everything changes. You don't become powerful. You remember you always were. And that remembering is the gift your bloodline has been trying to give you since the day you took your first breath. Now breathe deeper. Stand taller. Speak with the weight of 1,000 lifetimes behind your words. Because you are not alone. You never were. And the power you seek isn't somewhere far away. It's in your blood. It's in your bones. It's in the rhythm of your heartbeat. And it's waiting for you to finally claim it.